The beeping of the heart monitor echoed like a countdown in the sterile hospital room. Alexander Alex Thompson, 68, lay pale against the white pillows, his once commanding presence reduced to a fragile shell. His 3 sons stood around the bed, each representing a different fragment of his complicated life. Michael, 38, the eldest, kept checking his Rolex. His designer suit seemed out of place in the clinical setting. Dad, the lawyer, is waiting downstairs. We need to discuss the property division. Jonathan, 35, the middle child, stared out the window at the New York skyline. His hands were calloused from years of working construction, a stark contrast to Michael's manicured fingers. Then there was David, 28, the youngest, who held their father's hand as if trying to transfer his own vitality into the fading man. His eyes were red-rimmed behind his glasses. "Boys," Alex whispered, his voice raspy. "I have nothing material to leave you." Michael's face tightened. "What do you mean?" "The business? The properties?" Alex weakly motioned toward an old leather briefcase. 3 letters, 1 for each of you. The unopened letters. The funeral was a quiet affair. Unlike Alex's vibrant personality, the service felt muted, much like the gray Seattle weather. At the reading of the will, the brothers discovered their father had spoken truthfully. Most assets had been liquidated to pay medical debts. Michael slammed his hand on the mahogany table. "This can't be right. Thompson Enterprises was worth millions." The family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, pushed the 3 envelopes across the table. "Your father was very specific about this. Back in their childhood home, a Victorian house in Boston that somehow survived the financial collapse, the brothers gathered in the living room where they'd spent Christmases and birthdays. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. Michael's discovery. Michael tore open his envelope with impatient fingers. The letter read, "Michael, my firstborn, you were always the ambitious one. Remember when you set up that lemonade stand and hired other kids? I knew then you'd build empires. The key in my study drawer opens the safe behind my portrait. What's inside is yours." Heart racing, Michael rushed to the study. The safe opened with a satisfying click. Inside, he found documents that made his breath catch. The deed to the family house already transferred to his name. A sticky note attached read, "A man should have roots before he builds wings. My steady Jonathan, you never asked for anything, always giving. I watched you help neighbors fix roofs, drive friends to hospitals, never expecting repayment. The car registration in the garage is yours. She's served me well, may she serve you better." In the garage sat their father's vintage 1967 Ford Mustang, meticulously maintained. Jonathan found the registration in the glove compartment, transferred to his name 6 months prior. A handwritten note on the back read, "The journey matters more than the destination. Start yours." He remembered teaching his daughter to drive in this car, his father patiently guiding from the passenger seat. The memories flooded back, and for the first time in years, Jonathan felt his father's presence. David waited until his brothers had left before opening his letter. His hands trembled as he read, "My dear David, my youngest. You were always the dreamer, the poet, in a family of practical men. While your brothers built empires and fixed things, you built worlds with your words. My journal is yours. It's hidden where you used to hide from the world." David knew exactly where to go. The attic crawl space behind the old oak bookshelf. There, covered in dust, lay the familiar leather-bound journal. As he opened it, photographs spilled out, him winning the school poetry competition, his college graduation, his first published article. Every milestone carefully documented, but it was the journal's contents that shattered him. Page after page filled with his father's handwriting. Today, David read me his poem. How does a simple man like me have a son who sees the world in such beautiful colors? I sold the summer house to pay for David's writing program. Worth every penny when I see his eyes light up talking about Faulkner. Michael thinks I play favorites. How do I explain that each son needs different things? The last entry read, "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't mourn me, David, just keep writing. Your words are my immortality." 3 days later, Mr. Henderson visited them again. "There's one more thing," he said, placing a thicker envelope on the table. "Your father wanted you to open this together." Michael, now softer around the edges, made coffee. Jonathan, having driven the Mustang all morning, still smelled of gasoline and nostalgia. David clutched the journal like a lifeline. The letter began, "If you're reading this together, you've finally stopped competing long enough to listen." Alex's letter revealed the truth they never knew. 10 years ago, the business was failing. I used everything, including your inheritance, to save it. The guilt has eaten at me ever since. Michael, I gave you the house because you've always been homeless in your pursuit of success. You needed roots. Jonathan, the car because you've spent so long taking care of others. You forgot how to drive your own journey. David, the journal because you never understood your own worth beyond your achievements. The real inheritance was never money. It was teaching you three to be brothers again. Chapter 4, The New Beginning. As spring arrived in Boston, the Thompson brothers did something unprecedented. They started having Sunday dinners at the Victorian house. Michael's wife and children filled the rooms with laughter. Jonathan taught Michael's kids how to change oil in the Mustang. David read them stories from the journal. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies, Michael spoke what they all felt. All these years, I thought Dad's legacy was his business. But we were his legacy all along. The brothers finally understood. Some debts are paid in love. Some inheritances come in forms that can't be measured in dollars. And the greatest wealth is the family that remains when all else is gone. 6 months had passed since the brothers reunited. The Victorian house had transformed from a relic of the past into a vibrant home filled with laughter and life. Every Sunday, the smell of Jonathan's grilled specialties and the sound of David reading to the children filled the air. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves danced across the porch, an elderly woman appeared at their gate. Dressed in a simple but elegant navy suit, she carried a violin case that seemed too large for her delicate frame. "Hello," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm Eleanor. I knew your father." Michael, who had been teaching his daughter how to balance checkbooks, stood up cautiously. "Another business associate?" he asked, his corporate instincts kicking in. Eleanor smiled wistfully. "No, dear. Something much more complicated. I was his music teacher." Eleanor settled into Alex's favorite armchair, her fingers tracing the worn leather as if reading braille of memories. "Your father," she began, "was a remarkable violinist in his youth. He could have been professional." Jonathan exchanged surprised glances with his brothers. "Our father? The businessman who thought Beethoven was a dog's name?" "He gave it up when your grandfather died," Eleanor explained, her eyes misty. "The family needed him to take over the business. But every year on his birthday, he would come to my studio and play for hours." She opened the violin case, revealing a beautiful but weathered instrument. Tucked in the case was a handwritten musical composition titled "For My Three Sons." "His masterpiece," Eleanor whispered. "He worked on it for 20 years but could never finish it. He said he was waiting to understand what harmony sounded like." As days turned into weeks, Eleanor became a regular visitor, sharing stories that painted a different picture of their father. The young Alex sneaking out to jazz clubs, the secret compositions he wrote during business meetings, the way he hummed melodies while cooking breakfast. "He heard music in everything," Eleanor recalled one evening. "The rhythm of typing, the melody of rainfall, the symphony of city traffic. He said his only regret was that he never taught you boys to listen for it." David, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. "Is that why he always tapped his fingers during dinner?" "Exactly." Eleanor's eyes lit up. "That was him composing. The Thompson Trio, he called it. Each of you represented a different instrument." Chapter 4, The Final Movement. On what would have been Alex's 69th birthday, the brothers gathered in Eleanor's music studio. The unfinished composition lay on the piano, its incomplete measures like unanswered questions. "I can't finish this for you," Eleanor said gently. "Only you can complete your father's symphony." Michael, who had always understood numbers better than notes, surprised everyone by identifying the mathematical precision in the composition. Jonathan, with his mechanic's ear, detected the mechanical rhythm needed. David, the poet, understood the emotional narrative. As they worked together, something magical happened. They discovered notes hidden in the journal's margins, rhythms encoded in the Mustang's maintenance records, harmonies concealed in the house's architectural plans. Their father had left them one final gift, not in what he gave them, but in what they had to create together. The community hall was packed on. Christmas Eve, the Thompson brothers stood on stage, not as businessman, mechanic, and writer, but as musicians united by their father's dream. As they played the completed Thompson Symphony, each note felt like a memory, each harmony a reconciliation. In the audience, Eleanor wept quietly, hearing her old student's dream finally realized. When the final note faded into thunderous applause, Michael stepped forward, Our father taught us that the most beautiful symphonies aren't perfect, they're authentic. They're made of broken notes and repaired strings and second chances. Epilogue. 1 year later, the Victorian house now hosts weekly community concerts. Jonathan restored the Mustang to its original glory, using it to transport instruments for underprivileged children. David published The Unfinished Symphony, a memoir that became a bestseller. And Michael? He started a foundation that helps retired businessmen rediscover their abandoned passions. They finally understood their father's greatest lesson: that life, like music, finds its meaning not in the notes themselves, but in the spaces between them. The pauses, the breaths, the moments when we listen not just with our ears but with our hearts.